carries. And then if I could please have a motion to approve the minutes from our last meeting.
I move we
So moved.
approve the minutes from the last meeting as presented.
All right, I'm going to give
Second.
the motion to Mr. Ackerman and the second to Ms. Walker-Radke. Again, I'll call through the roll. Ms. Sutton?
Aye.
Mr. Ackerman?
Yes.
Ms. Walker-Radke?
Yes.
Mr. Newman?
Yes.
Mr. Hawkins?
Yes.
And Mr. Blythe?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. Motion passes unanimously. If staff could please read the announcement into the record.
Section 30-3.3 of the Land Development Code establishes the Plan Board, including its membership, rules of procedure, and functions, powers, and duties. The Plan Board is advisory to the City Commission on most planning petitions. Appeals of Plan Board decisions concerning special use permits are to a hearing officer within 30 calendar days of the decision. See Section 30-3.58C of the Land Development Code. The procedure for an appeal is set forth in Section 30-3.58.
Thank you, Ms. Thomas. Moving on, we have old business, the comprehensive plan update.
So yes, we have one of our consultants, Lydia Gaby, who's visiting us this evening. And so she has a presentation for the board. Let's see if I need to pull up the presentation for her. Just give us one moment. Sorry, we're experiencing some technical difficulties, so we're trying to get her moved over as a panelist. So just bear with us. There she is.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Hi. Thanks, everyone, for giving us the opportunity to join the Plan Board meeting today, for the opportunity to introduce HRNA advisors. We are the consultant brought on to support the City of Gainesville and the comprehensive plan update, and speak with you all about the project. I have a short presentation that I'd like to talk through with you all, again, to sort of give a general introduction to us and to the project, to orient you all to our team and the summary of our approach. And then I've got a couple of short discussion questions at the end for us to talk through. So I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. Okay. Okay. You all can see?
Yes.
Okay, good. So first, a little bit about us. HRNA is a real estate and economic development consulting firm. We work at the intersection of public and private sectors. We're a mission-driven, employee-owned company of analysts, planners, policy experts who care deeply about the future of American cities. So for more than 40 years, we've helped communities and cities across the country to develop policies and programs that create more livable and equitable places. Our inclusive cities practice translates the needs of communities and their advocates into meaningful systems change within local government. So some of the things that we do, we launch programs that advance social and economic justice and inform policy. We work with communities so that they can be the most effective that they can be at using the levers available to them to make more equitable projects, neighborhoods, and cities. And we like to say that we're the bridge between intention and implementation. So a little bit about who will be leading this project. I'll be the project manager for the city on this effort. A little bit about me. I'm originally from Springfield, Massachusetts, a town in Western Massachusetts that on the one side has a rich cultural history, amazing architectural legacy, great universities, strong medical and insurance industry, and on the other side struggles with some of the same issues that cities face across the country, things like limited access to affordable housing, job opportunities, racial inequity. And the work that I've done throughout my career and my family's work in Springfield in things like social work, real estate, community development more broadly. These sort of aspects of community development have shown me, what it takes to support residents in connecting to jobs, in repairing and investing in their homes, and accessing opportunity to create wealth, advocating for investment, and ultimately to understand and use their power to build their own futures. So I've spent my career designing programs, organizational strategies, neighborhood planning.
Hi, I'm Heather Steves. This was accidentally delivered to our house. I'm coming
Oh,
back.
thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate you. I'm Thomas.
Yeah, hi, Thomas. I'm Alacia.
Okay, I was getting some feedback from Thomas, but I'll keep going if that's okay.
I apologize. Somebody knocked at my door and I forgot to mute my microphone.
That's okay. I'll keep going.
Pardon me.
That's all right. So just saying that, I do a lot of work in no and slow growth communities, historically disinvested areas, trying to encourage economic revitalization, helping communities that are disconnected from other neighborhoods and from public services to kind of bridge the gap between, what they need and what they see in their future. So I'm joined on this project by HRNA partner Andrea Batista-Schlesinger, who leads our inclusive cities practice. The guiding principle behind our practice is that economic development is not a neutral act. The fields of economic development and planning have historically created and perpetuated divides. We've been willing actors to justify and enhance and advance harmful policies like urban renewal. And we find ourselves today in this moment where our cities have to reckon with this, which means we need to adapt and redeploy our tools of planning and economic development to create equitable cities. So, our definition of what that means is that who you are, your background, your race, your income does not determine your life outcome, how far you go in life, and we work with communities to design strategies to achieve that. Andrea and I will be working closely in this project, and we've been doing so far with the City of Gainesville. And while I'm here today, as always with our company, we'll run this project collaboratively with you all at the Plan Board, with the City of Gainesville, with community partners and those who are already working hard to improve life in Gainesville. And internally, we've got a bench of over 100 subject matter experts and analysts in 5 offices across the country. So just a little bit more about the type of work that we do. We do a lot of comprehensive plans, citywide plans, master plans, neighborhood plans all across the country. Cities sort of large and small, cities that care about equity, cities that don't care about equity, cities with resilience challenges, housing challenges, uneven investment. So we bring to this project not only sort of an idea and a capacity to plan, but this kind of national perspective and an idea about how we can sort of import some of the best practices that we've seen. And one of the things that I'd say about some of these that are shown on the screen is that we know that a good plan is not just about something that sits on a shelf that has really great language, but also the implementation framework behind it. A plan that has a really strong implementation focus and that allows you to sort of say no to things instead of just saying yes to everything and justifying it with the comprehensive plan. And we can come back to this in the discussion if it's helpful. We put racial equity at the core of economic development. So, what does that mean? We're motivated by the goal of making more racially equitable and economically just cities. So we work with cities, philanthropy, advocates to name the ways that our historic approaches to urban development have perpetuated inequity and do the work to try and right that injustice. So we do that by asking things like who wins and who loses from the specific policies we're suggesting. Who's deciding, who's at the table in terms of figuring out what the priorities are. And in our implementation plans, are we assuming a lack of bias on behalf of the people who are going to be implementing those policies? We truly believe that the direction of cities won't be changed until we're clear about what needs to change to address inequity, and also until more people from more communities are engaged in those really important conversations about their future. So we think the plan will only be successful when people from the broader community have the knowledge and the ability to participate meaningfully in the planning process, and also have the power to continue speaking up and continue getting involved in the implementation to hold us all accountable and continue making sure that the shared vision is relevant to everyone. So we will be thought partners for the city and the community in developing a new kind of comprehensive plan that looks beyond zoning to create a holistic vision for the city future. So this approach to the project is grounded in a really thoughtful, inspiring piece of guidance from the City Commission, which was also echoed in the procurement process and a lot of our conversations with the city to date. So the plan must achieve a couple of objectives, which are listed here. I won't go through every word on the slide, but in short, what we aim to do is define what we mean by equity. Why is that important? What does that mean about where we are today as a city, how people experience their lives in the city, and where their life outcomes are sort of shaped by the comprehensive plan. We are meant to, in this comprehensive plan update, include new goals and policies that improve quality of life across the city. The plan must be accessible for anyone to read, understand, get involved. And we must ensure that there are ways to continually seek the guidance and expertise from those who are most impacted by growth and development throughout the plan's implementation. Just a little bit about our process. We are right now in phase 1 of the process, setting the foundations for a variety of community discussions and collaborative planning activities to come. So during phase 1, especially because of the city's desire to do comprehensive planning in a new way, it's really critical for us to dedicate time at the project outset for our team to work with city staff around goals and objectives and do what we can to develop answers to questions like, how have we gotten to where we are today? Why and how has the comprehensive plan created and perpetuated inequity? Where is there the potential for an updated plan to meaningfully improve quality of life over the next decade? So as I said, we're in phase 1 today, sort of setting those foundations for the activities to come. And throughout phases 2 and 3, we see engagement running throughout the course of the project. And we're currently in the process of designing the ways that community members can learn more about the comprehensive plan. Why is it important? How does it affect their lives? What are the ways that they can help us to establish a shared understanding of, what are the most pressing issues that are affecting life in the city today? What are their priorities and visions for the future? To shape the strategies for us to collaboratively put together the plan update, we want to make sure that the plan update is something that we're working through collaboratively with the community. And this last piece is around making sure that we are putting into place strategies to, again, partner with community in the implementation of the plan itself once it's complete. So that's a little bit about us and our project. Some of the things that we've thought through, I can go into more detail as well. We've highlighted a couple of discussion questions for the plan board today, and going back and forth with the Department of Sustainable Development about this project that I'd love to get your feedback on. We don't need to stick just to these questions, but a couple that came up in our discussions about what we can have you all sort of share with us today are, in your view, what would you think what do you think would make for a strong comprehensive plan update? What would you change about the plan that is in place today, and how it's used, how it is or isn't effective in sort of serving the goals of all residents? There's the second question is a really big one. The comprehensive plan is typically or historically treated as sort of a moral document, a guiding document, and we've got a lot of feedback in terms of making sure that the plan, has teeth or is able to meaningfully advance priorities. And so there's a tension between the specificity of the plan and or the idea of specificity in the plan versus what it has traditionally acted as more of a set of general policy guidance that arguably can say yes to many things and says no to very few things. And our last question was sort of about the plan board specifically. This was a question that came up in our conversations with the Department of Sustainable Development. What role would you all see the plan board playing in the comprehensive plan update project? And do you all envision any participation above and beyond the formal legislative adoption process in meetings? So I'll pause there and happy to take a round of clarifying questions or to dive into discussion.
So I guess if, let me open up the chat on my end, and if I see Thomas, you have your hand raised, would you like to start?
But whenever you're ready to take comments, I'm happy to jump in.
I think we're ready. I remembered where the chat button was, so I have it pulled up.
I could also stop sharing the slides if you'd prefer to see everyone's faces.
I would appreciate that.
Yeah.
I know I took notes during your comments. I apologize again, Lydia, for rudely interrupting your presentation. That's very embarrassing.
It's okay.
So Zoom, I spend all day on Zoom. I don't know how I could commit such a faux pas. One thing that I wanted to comment on in your presentation is your emphasis on the plan as a binding regulatory document and giving clear guidance. In Florida, every development decision that the city makes that includes this board, our development review board, the city commission, and then anything staff approves has to be consistent with the plan. I know plans in other states sometimes are intentionally aspirational. While we want to aspire to greatness, we need language that's objective so that applicants know they can comply with it, staff knows they can comply with it, et cetera. So I would just second that. You specifically asked how we'd like to be involved. I would love to be involved as much as staff in your firm can accommodate us. I know you have lots of folks to meet with in a limited amount of time, but given those constraints, that's my personal preference, and be happy to hear from other plan board members. Because we may schedule additional meetings to accommodate that, but I would certainly say yes, please. And then I wanted to touch on 4 things that I would love for you to keep an eye out for. One is, as we focus on transportation and safe biking and walking and convenient biking and walking, I would love to see a connection between the Vision Zero plan that the city's mobility department is prepping and what you're doing, so we have as much integration between those documents as possible. And then any land use policies that you would think we should improve on, I would advocate for. The second is, I don't think the city knows where it wants to be in historic preservation. And I don't know that I have any guidance either, but I would encourage you to look at that. I think that some of the neighborhoods that are at most risk for losing their cultural identity, that currently have affordable housing, where current residents are being priced out and moved out, are also historic neighborhoods. And so that's something we need to figure out. I don't know if you've been to Gainesville. Have you been to Gainesville?
Yes.
Okay. Check out, the next time you're here, or check out on Google Maps, there's a neighborhood immediately east of the University of Florida campus that's the University Heights South Historic District. It's full of multifamily development. I don't think it's a great case study for equity and social inclusion, but it is a great case study for increasing density while maintaining historic character. And so I would love for us to take lessons where the city succeeded there, where we're not succeeding in some of our other historic neighborhoods. I'd love for us to learn something. The third one of 4 is, I'm sure you've already got a copy of it, but the University of Florida Strategic Plan is a great document. And I think that I've never heard anybody disparage it. So I assume it's consistent with where we want to go. So I would look for policies that have city development augmenting it in the future. And then finally, something that I don't think that we do adequately in our future land use map is reflect RTS routes and RTS's, our regional transit system, its plans for higher capacity transit routes in the future. It would be great if we were thinking about where we accommodated density and multifamily on our main arterial corridors in conjunction with where RTS is talking about increasing the quality and quantity of service. And I don't think that we do that in a really meaningful way right now. So that's it. And I'm really excited. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas. Mr. Ackerman, are you trying to raise your hand? You're muted, Bob. Bob, you're muted. We can't hear you.
I got you. I got you.
There we go.
I was trying, Oscar was barking his brains out. I agree with Thomas in almost everything he says. In fact, pretty much everything. My experience, though, with the update we did when we implemented the form-based code, which has probably been 4 or 5 years ago, we had multiple public meetings to explain to people what it meant and what effect it was going to have on their specific neighborhoods, on the city at large. I would very much, as we go through this process, like to be able to have some additional public meetings that allow people to see what this is, rather than, I think it's a bad idea to just present a finished product at the end of 9 or 10 months or a year. I think you get a lot of pushback. I was very impressed with the form-based code. We had dozens of meetings over and above our regular meetings, and the night that we transmitted it to the City Commission for approval, meetings that had been hundreds of people was reduced to a small number of people. It really did manage to convince people that, persuade people that this was a good direction for us to go. So I'm a big fan of, and I think it's very important that we get buy-in from the people that this is going to affect throughout the process, so that at the end we have a product that a substantial, hopefully, majority of people agree with. And like Thomas, I'm a busybody enough that I'd like to be involved as much as possible in this. And actually, the City Plan Board is actually the body that is tasked with doing these kind of things. And so we ought to be actively involved. Thank you. I'm looking forward to working with you.
Thank you, Bob. Does anybody else have any comments? If nobody else has anything, I would like to just echo what both Thomas and Bob said, where the more that we can be involved, the better, and the more we involve the community, the better. The community meetings where we hashed out our differences and the details made the final passage much more acceptable to everyone and made everyone much more comfortable. And that process, although it was tedious and it took a lot of effort from the staff and from the plan board, was worth it in the end. One thing that we did when we did the form-based code was, and I don't know how this would work in COVID times, but we took field trips around the city and said, okay, we're talking about 6 stories here. Well, what does that look like? Well, here's a 6-story building. And we went on the ground and looked at exactly what we were talking about, where we were talking about it. And we allowed members of the public to come along on those field trips. And it made a lot of the community members much more comfortable with what we were talking about. And I think at least for me as a member, it was extremely useful. And I know that there were members of the community that found it extremely useful. So that would be something that if we can figure out a way to do it safely, I would strongly encourage we do again. So thank you again for your presentation and for all your work. And we look forward to continuing to work with you.
Thank you everyone for your comment, and I'm really looking forward to partnering with you all in the city on this. And just on the engagement part, we are 100% in agreement that it makes the process a lot smoother, makes people feel more comfortable with the opportunity in creative ways, different ways to give public input. So we'll definitely be going forward with that sort of in mind.
Oh, and then one more thing that I'd like to emphasize that I was going to say originally was that I think we as a city are falling down on affordable housing, and we need to do better at incorporating it across the city. And that's something that's at the forefront of my mind that we need to do better in. And I think I speak for the board that most of us feel the same way, and most of the city feels the same way. So that's something that I just would like to emphasize throughout the process.
Could I, Aaron?
Go ahead.
On that specific point, I know we just had some changes in state legislation on inclusionary zoning, and I forget the name of the impact fee for affordable housing, the linkage fees. So I would suggest either sending staff over to the attorney's office soon, or just getting some clear information on what those rules are so we can anticipate them early in the process.
Yes, very helpful. Any other questions or comment?
Mr. Newman.
Yeah, I guess just the one other little thing that if there was some way of just thinking about trying to address is, particularly as we, do redevelopments and bring in, changes to sort of new areas, trying to, if there's some ways that we can incentivize and try to sort of keep some of the local businesses, here, or attract them, particularly in terms of, retail and restaurants, instead of having, chains constantly sort of coming into particular sort of areas. I don't know how that can be done, but it's something that, I know, change is hard and sometimes change is necessary, but sometimes if there are ways that we can try to keep some of that flavor, would be good.
Absolutely. And we've done a lot of work in terms of just that. How can we give the city tools to allow for businesses to reinvest and expand and stay competitive as other businesses are coming in, to use city property and think about the actual space that you have, to provide opportunities for people to start businesses. There are a lot of things that are possible to do that we can help to explore with you all throughout the process.
Thank you, Ms. Gabby. Does anybody else have any questions or comments? All right, I think that's it. Thank you for your presentation, and we'll look forward to working with you.
Thank you all.
Okay, moving on our agenda to new business. Could we please read the first item into the record?
All right, petition PB-20-96, PDA, Three Lakes Creek LLC, amendment to the Steel Point Plan Development Zoning Ordinance to allow for a 30-bed assisted living facility and technical office use located at 2730 Northwest 39th Avenue.
All right, and if staff is ready to make their presentation.
Yvette Thomas, planner with the Department of Sustainable Development, here for the Steel Point PD amendment, again, PB-20-96. This is a request. Ralph Hilliard is the applicant for Three Lakes LLC. Again, amendment to allow a 30-bed assisted living facility. You'll see a map presented to you outlining the property located along 39th Avenue. This is the map showing the surrounding land use for the plan unit development land use. You'll see recreation to the north, west, and east of the property, as well as residential low and single family land uses. It's a map depicting the surrounding zoning, public services and operations, single family residential, RSF2 and RSF4. This is a picture of the existing site. The current use is, of course, medical office. The site is just a little over 1.5 acres, and the current zoning is planned development. That zoning was applied back in 2009. Currently, the applicant is requesting, again, a 30-bed assisted living facility. The existing building on the site is about 3,500 square feet. And based on that, it can accommodate up to 20 beds. The amendment will allow an additional 10 beds with a proposed addition of about 1,500 square feet to accommodate that request. Some more photos of the site. The photo on the left is just showing kind of the street view. If you're walking along walking along 39th, and you kind of can see into the development. If you're walking along the sidewalk to the left, and to the right is actually looking into the development from that same sidewalk. Here is the attached development plan. The orange area that's outlined on the left side of the plan is showing that addition that I mentioned earlier of about 1,500 square feet. Some of the changes associated with this would, well, one, not necessarily a change, but it would still maintain the 20-foot side setback as indicated in the PD ordinance, but there would be kind of a decrease in that front setback to 146 feet. The way that the ordinance is written today, it allowed for additions to be done to the rear of the existing structure that you can see in the picture to the right. So this amendment would allow for that additional space to be added to the front, but still maintaining that 146-foot setback from the street. And the area, you'll kind of see the parking that's shown in the picture to the right. So the addition would be placed behind that. This would probably be considered probably a minor development plan review. It's considered a fairly small scale addition to the site. Based on the review criteria as outlined in the Land Development Code, staff recommends approval of the request, PB-20-96 PDA. If you have any questions, I'm available. The applicant is also available for questions.
Thank you, Ms. Thomas. Does the applicant have a presentation?
Chair Condon, we do have a presentation. I can be very brief. But it does cover a lot of the same things that staff has just covered with you.
Okay, before we move on, Mr. Hilliard, does anyone on the plan board have questions for staff based on the presentation? Mr. Ackerman? You're muted, Bob.
There we go. I'm a little puzzled. It's a 1,500 square foot addition and it accommodates 18 to 20 beds. I live in a 1,500 square foot house and I can't quite picture 20 people in this house. I'm trying to figure out, are they gonna use the existing building for other parts of the facility, or I'm puzzled. The size seems wrong.
Mr. Ackerman, the existing building is 3,500 square feet. So that building will be used in addition to, when they move to phase 2, there's an additional 1,495 square feet that will be used that will accommodate up to 30 potential residents. We do have on this call, on this Zoom, Mr. Scott Burnett, and I believe that Jennifer Fetterman is on the line also, and they may be able to add some additional information to that about the size.
I'll wait for that. Thank you.
Okay, do we have any questions from the board for staff before we move to the applicant presentation? Okay, seeing none, Mr. Hilliard, if you'd like to give your presentation.
Yes, I can share, screen. I have to pull up the presentation. Can you see the presentation?
No, we
Not
cannot.
yet.
Okay, I never did see the button where it says share screen.
Staff, do we have a solution?
It should be located at the bottom of the screen, a green button that says share screen.
I got it. Here we go.
Okay. We can see
Now
it.
we can see it.
Okay, as it's been mentioned, this is the Stale Point Plan Development Amendment. It's approximately 1.55 acres. Talked about the 3,500 square feet. The current use is a medical office providing natural healing services such as acupuncturists, massage therapists, herbalists, psychotherapists, physical therapy, and chiropractic. The proposed amendment is to add a 30-bed assisted living facility within 5,000 square feet. That would be with the 3,500 square foot existing building and the 1495 addition. This site is in a very interesting location where you see that it's totally surrounded and isolated by Spring Tree Park. There is a church directly across the street from this property. And then there's additional institutional use to the east of the property with the Creekside Community Church. So it's totally isolated. When we're talking about internal and external compatibility, we don't have any of those issues here because it's totally separated from any of the single family properties in the area. Yvette already discussed the sort of the layout of the property. We will be maintaining all the setbacks. The actual lot coverage at this point will only be about 20% of the site. I know when Mr. Burnett had a neighborhood meeting, some of the residents were concerned about, whether there would be any trees and things being removed out of those buffers. Those buffers will be maintained. This is a house that is currently there, an office building. It used to be a house a long time ago. This area, it shows you sort of where the addition will be in front of the building. This is existing parking lot. 39th Avenue, as we all know, is basically a 5-lane highway. It is the major truck route through the city of Gainesville. This is the Creekside Church to the east of the site. We feel that what we're proposing is consistent with the comprehensive plan. The plan talks about improving quality of life, pretty much talking about providing choices for people of where they live. This will be providing an opportunity to bring some type of affordable housing for people into the western part of Gainesville. It will help to create that diversity within this area. We went through conformance with the plan development purpose. Again, we're looking at life design features such as the integration of housing types and accommodating of changing lifestyles within neighborhoods. What you find mostly in Gainesville when it comes to assisted living facilities is that those facilities, the way the city is zoned and land use now, are typically relegated to multifamily, high density type areas. This area that we're talking about here will provide a limited number of residents with a more of a residential neighborhood feel. The difference between this and other ALF is the size. We're talking about maximum 30 residents. In some of the other facilities, you're talking upwards of 100 to 200 residents. Internal, we looked at internal compatibility. We don't have any conflicts. External compatibility, intensity of development. It's 5,000 square feet on 1.55 acres. So it'll be a minor development impact. The open space, as I said, it would be 80% of the lot would still be in open space. There are wetlands and things to the rear of the site. There's actually a creek that wraps around the property. It's totally protected, will not be encroaching into any of that. There are sidewalks in the area. There used to be a bus route, I believe it was Route 39 that travels 39th Avenue. Looking at the RTS map today, I did not see that that route was still active. So our request is to approve the petition to allow 30-bed assisted living facilities within 5,000 square feet with some additional scientific and technical office uses. With that, I conclude my presentation and be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Hilliard. Could you unshare your screen so we can all see each other again? And do we have any questions from members of the board for either staff or Mr. Hilliard?
I would like to answer the question that Bob had about the addition.
Please
That's
go ahead,
okay.
Mr. Barnett.
Yeah, so basically the idea is to make this facility Medicaid compliant, and they have all the regulations. And what that would do would allow us to use this facility for affordable elderly housing. People now that can't afford, let's say one of the big box places, has to leave the city and the county actually to, and their family members and everything far away. They have to leave out of this area because we don't have it available in Gainesville right now. And so what we understand is that how we care for our elderly reflects the type of city we are. So we're trying to create a situation where we can allow these people that have minimal resources, maybe just Social Security, but they'll have a nice, safe home environment in a natural setting that's close to where their family can visit them. And that additional building would allow for 12 more beds. So it's not going to be 20 beds. There's a regulation based on licensed.
Thank you,
Does that answer your question?
Thank you, Mr. Barnett. Mr. Ackerman?
That pretty much answers my question. I guess what I wasn't clear about is you're going to redeploy the existing building for this use. So it's no longer going to be an acupuncturist. And I actually live near this space, so I'm fairly familiar with the kind of hodgepodge of stuff that's in there right now. It's a pretty beautiful site, and Springtree Park is pretty lovely and wraps around it. So, I mean, I can understand that it would be an attractive place for something like this.
Mr. Hilliard?
Yes, the existing structure will be repurposed for this. It will be either an ALF or an office building. We will not have both uses occupying that property at the same time.
Thank you, Mr. Hilliard. Do we have any other questions from the board for staff or for the applicant? All right, seeing none, let me see. Do we have anybody on the line from public comment?
We have no public comment on this item.
Okay, seeing none, I'll bring it. So if there are no public comment, I'll bring it back to the board for either discussion or motion.
Chair Condon, this is Elizabeth
Yes.
with the Department of Building and Planning. I do have an e-comment that was left on the city's website. Would you like for me to read that?
Yes, please.
Okay, please bear with me. The print is very small and my eyes are over 30. So here it is. Okay. This e-comment was by Brian Johnson. The predominant land use along Northwest 39th Avenue between Northwest 34th Street and Northwest 13th Street is low-density residential. An assisted living facility on this parcel would be a significant deviation from the character of our low-intensity, quiet neighborhood with regard to intensity of use and will bring unwanted EMS vehicle noise. Assisted living facilities need to be located in high-intensity neighborhoods with other medical support facilities that its residents require. Springtree Park surrounds the parcel. Is that not a more appropriate land use? And that is the end.
Okay, thank you so much. So is that it for E comments?
That is the only one I received.
Okay, thank you. Bringing it back to the board for discussion or for a motion. Mr. Barnett, I think you're muted if you're trying to add anything in. And now you're frozen.
Did actually, Mike, can you hear me now?
Yes.
No? Okay, yeah. So our traffic study showed that this change in usage would actually reduce the traffic in and out of the facility significantly. Like I think it was almost 50% less.
Okay,
So
thank you.
and so we're looking at really a quiet place. It's not, and I can't imagine anyone would worry about noise. So
Okay, thank you, Mr. Barnett. Coming back to the board. Don't all talk at once.
I will move to approve petition PB 20-96 PDA in accordance with staff's recommendation.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second from Mr. Ackerman. Any discussion? All right, I'll take the roll. If you agree, please say aye. Ms. Walker-Radke?
Aye.
Mr. Ackerman?
Yes.
Ms. Sutton?
Aye.
Mr. Newman?
Aye.
Mr. Blythe?
Aye.
Mr. Hawkins?
No.
And I'm also an aye. So it passes, is it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? 5-1. All right, moving on to our next
Thank you.
item. Excuse me?
Just said thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Hilliard. It's good to see you.
Right. Bye-bye.
Likewise.
Bye. All right, moving on to our next item. Could staff please read our next item into the record?
Petition PB-20-92 SUP CHW Incorporated, agent for WRJ Sales Incorporated, request for a well-filled special use permit to allow for underground storage of petroleum and property located within Murphy's tertiary well-filled zone, zoned BA automotive-oriented business located at 4545 Northwest 13th Street.
Thank you. Do we have a staff presentation on this item?
Yes, we do. Good afternoon. Well, good evening, City Planning Board members. For the record, my name is Juan Castillo. Let me share my screen with you really quickly. All right. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Fantastic. All right. So the petition before you this evening is one of two related petitions that will come before you, and this one pertains to the property, to this property and the proposed development associated with it. The item before you currently is a privately initiated petition by CHW for a well-field special use permit to allow for underground storage of petroleum in a property located within the Murphy's tertiary wellfield zone. And this doesn't want to change slides. There we go. All right. So the development associated with this request is for a gas station with an associated convenience store, 12 fueling stations, and a car wash. This development is allowed by right within the current zoning district. However, the applicant will need a special use permit to allow for the additional 6 extra fueling stations, which will be a presentation that I will give to you shortly after this. The subject property is located, as was mentioned earlier, at 4545 Northwest 6th Street. It's approximately 8 acres in size and lies within a commercial land use with automotive-oriented business zoning. Also, as mentioned earlier, the property lies within Murphy's Tertiary Wellfield Protection Zone, which necessitates a wellfield special use permit in order to allow for underground storage of petroleum. Currently, there are 9 existing gas stations with underground petroleum storage within the Tertiary Wellfield Protection Zone. Furthermore, this has been reviewed by GRU and approved by GRU, which is one of the review criteria following the adopted text change for wellfield protection special use permits. Staff has reviewed the application before you and has found that it meets the wellfield special use review criteria found within our land development code. This includes consistency with the comprehensive plan, compatibility with surrounding land uses, and special requirements for particular uses. In this case, regulations for car wash and gasoline stations. The full review can be found in your report. With that said, staff is recommending approval of the wellfield special use permit request before you. Thank you, and I am available for any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Castillo. Do I have any questions from the board for staff? Ms. Walker-Radke.
Thank you. My question is, obviously this petition is related to the special use permit for the additional pumps that follows on the agenda. Is our motion on this item, does it include the additional pumps, the additional 6 pumps in the car wash, or is this just if they were to pick up and move the existing station, this just relates to being able to store an unspecified amount of petroleum product underground?
That's correct. This is just for the underground storage of petroleum, not associated with the pumps in the next presentation.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Hawkins?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was going to basically ask the same question. So the site plan that you showed is not associated with the special use. That's not going to accompany the tertiary wellfield special use permit.
That's correct. That was shown just for illustration purposes, just so that you're aware of what's the type of development that's being proposed on the site.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have any other questions for staff from the board? Okay, seeing none, does the applicant have a presentation on this item? Jerry, you're muted.
Yep, it was just coming on. Thank you, Madam Chair. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Great, thank you. Well, good evening, Jerry Diedenbach, CHW. Happy to be here. I'm also here with Craig Brazier, our planning director, and Ryan Thompson. Our clients, I believe, are online too, as well as former Commissioner, the Honorable Craig Carter is here, who has been helping along with this process here. I'm going to share my screen, and please let me know when you have the screen share.
We can see it now.
Okay, very good, thank you. Well, we're here tonight. This has been a very long road, it seems, because we were ready to go to the plan board prior to COVID, when we noted during the staff review, Mr. Castillo noted that the land development code, although had a process for applying for a wellfield special use permit, no longer had criteria in it that allowed it. So as you know, and the plan board recommended, the City Commission has approved now on first and second reading the amendment to the land development code to allow applicants to apply for a wellfield special use permit. And as we had explained previously, we had worked with GRU and the Alachua County Environmental Protection Department to verify that change. And as Mr. Castillo said, they have looked at this application. Proof of publication is here. We advertised for this once the wellfield special use permit process was allowed. We held a neighborhood workshop. We had one individual attend that workshop, Mr. Colby Jacobson, and he was actually associated with the property ownership. He was the only person who attended that online forum. So our request is for a wellfield special use permit for a fueling station within the Murphy Tertiary Wellfield Water Management Zone. As Mr. Castillo said, the intent is to place a fuel station here with associated convenience store and a car wash. The timeline that we have followed, we submitted this in August of 2019, seems like about a year ago. And through the process, as the city has amended the land development code to allow this to be applied for, we are now here before you this evening. This is the site, and as explained, the existing store, a little bit of a landmark here, the old, what I would call U-Haul Center, was here across the street. The existing store is currently located at the intersection of 53rd Avenue and US 441. There's the new U-Haul with its indoor storage facility that has been constructed across the street here. And some of the surrounding uses, you can see where the U-Haul is here under construction. This is Ride Now Power Sports, Park Place Motors, the Social Security building here that used to be the old Dubs. There's a Paradise Trailer Court across here, Gatorland Kubota, Nelson's Metal Buildings, and Oak Ridge Apartments. And there's another mobile home court here, and then a lot of industrial and warehouse type uses around this area. It's surrounded on two sides by state highways, one on the left being US 441 and on the right, State Road 20 or Northwest 6th Street. We have existing land use and zoning that allows the use by right, and so therefore to accommodate this use, we need to have a well-field special use permit. As Mr. Castillo said, we are effectively moving, from 53rd and 441, hopefully to this site. The former site is a very small site. It occupies the corner in front of the former Scotty's, and some of the actual fueling positions there are a single lane wide. It's very tight, and people sometimes use the corner and use that to cut the corner there. This is a conceptual plan that will be accompanying the special use permit, which will be the second item tonight, but we included it here to show you the orientation of this. We've pulled the store into the apex of the corner. We will be enhancing and completing the sidewalk network around the property here. There will be buffers placed on either side of the canopy area, and the entire remainder of the site is really unused at this point in time. Stormwater management facilities will actually be added to the site today, where formerly this was mobile home sales over this entire area. To the south, there are wetland areas, and an associated buffer has been calculated on there to show you our distance. And there's an existing fence line that fenced in the former mobile home sales area, which I'm kind of running over here with my mouse to the south side here. We are proposing through city staff a lot split. As Mr. Castillo said, the site is about 8¼ acres. We certainly don't need 8¼ acres to accommodate this store. So this will leave a residual property here of about 1.24 acres north of the buffer area associated with the on-site wetlands on the southernmost portion of the site that travel off the site to the southwest. And with that, I'd conclude, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. And our staff is here to support any other questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Diedenbach. Do we have any questions from the board for the applicant or for staff? I have a question for staff. I've never seen, and it might be more appropriate to ask during the next presentation, but I've never seen a lot split to be able to accomplish a special use permit before, and I just would like some more information. Are we doing the lot split with this or with the subsequent item, or is that something that the city commission does or another body?
Juan Castillo for the record. Lot splits is something that is done administratively. The purpose of the lot split for this item is to divide, one of the reasons is to divide the use, the car wash use from existing multifamily residential units on south of the property. Per our land development code, car washes are not allowed to be adjacent to residential property, so the lot split would in essence create a lot in between the proposed development and the multifamily residential units. But what you would be voting on would not be on the lot split itself. You would be voting on the allowance of the 6 fueling stations when that presentation comes before you. The lot split would be handled administratively through us.
Thank you, Mr. Castillo. Ms. Walker-Radke?
Thank you. This is a question, I guess it's for staff. It's kind of an administrative question. I'm generally not a fan of adding, petroleum storage anywhere in a well field, but obviously this is basically a moving of one existing facility to another. So is there a way of making this new permit contingent on them essentially retiring the old permit? Is there a way to have a sort of a net zero new well field permits?
If you, I mean, I guess you can create a condition if you'd like to do that. You can do that as well.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that if that was a condition, it wouldn't say prevent them from if this is approved, it would not prevent them from starting construction on this before the current facility is shut down. Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah, I don't think, I don't know if, I don't believe this would prevent them from starting on the construction of this particular development. It would just, they would just have to have plans in motion to retire the existing gas station before they would move or start construction here.
Okay, and the current permit is associated with that particular facility and not with that particular lot. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, I'm not understanding that question.
I guess so. As part of this whole idea of retiring the permit that is currently in effect, that permit doesn't go with the lot, or does it? Is that something that we can actually require, or is that something that is now sort of a permanent asset of the lot where the current gas station is located?
So I think there's only one permit that would be associated. There will be the permit for this current development being proposed for this site. The use that will be retired is currently existing. I may be misunderstanding your question here, but the use would be retired, and they would just close down the gas station on that site, and then they would move to this site. That would be, I'm sorry, I don't think I'm understanding your question.
I think it's more me not understanding exactly how the well field permit process works. So the question was more, does the well field permit attach to the current use, like to that facility, or does it attach to that lot? So in other words, is it within our power to retire the permit when the gas station moves, or is there something else that is required in order? I guess I'm not explaining this right. Does anybody else know what I'm trying to ask who might be able to explain it better?
I think Mr. Diedenbach does, and I think I do too. And I think the issue you're trying to get to, which I hadn't thought of, is you would like to have, when the old gas station is closed, the question is, does their well field permit expire, evaporate, or if they sell it to a new gas purveyor, does it just run with the land? And yes, I have no idea. Now, I gather, I'm familiar with that gas station. It's barely suitable as a gas station. Somebody made a serious mistake when they built the canopies and the pumps, and one side of it has no access to the pumps, and it's a very cramped space. So I can't imagine anybody's going to really want to put another gas station there. But Mr. Diedenbach undoubtedly knows the answer to this.
Madam Chair, Jerry Diedenbach, I probably do know the answer. I know exactly what Ms. Walker-Radke was stating, and I would say that Mr. Ackerman has a great crystal ball here. What we would like to do is obviously construct the brand new, fully compliant store and then turn the old store off. We don't have control if somebody else were to come and propose it, but I doubt that anybody could reactivate that use on that site. I drove through it today, and as Plan Board Member Ackerman said, a lot of those fueling stations are one car wide. It's really, really precarious. We don't have control what somebody else would do with that real estate, but when we leave that site, we are not going to operate both stores. This is to get away from that site for its danger and its crowdedness and whatnot. I think somebody else, if they wanted to reestablish, would have to come to you all as the plan board and get a special use permit and re-up that, because the special use permit would not run with the land on that previous property.
Thank you. That answered my question.
Thank you, Mr. Diedenbach. Do we, Mr. Newman has his hand raised.
Yeah, and I guess, but I mean, so functionally, essentially, you know, I mean, the infrastructure, we're sort of doubling the infrastructure for, for sort of underground sort of storage for petroleum. So, you know, and again, I mean, so is that a concern or is that an issue, right? So, I mean, there's one thing with sort of what the overall sort of land use is, and I don't know if you were getting at sort of the fact that essentially now there's going to be potentially two storage tanks there. I mean, when they sort of decommission the other site, will that be taken out? Is a question that I would have.
Mr. Diedenbach?
Chair, yes, Mr. Carter and I were talking about that today. The appurtenances and the infrastructure is the property of our client, and they have life cycles in those tanks. And so it is our understanding that they will take those tanks out, take those pumps out, and decommission that. It's their mechanical hardware, basically. So you're not doubling down. Good question. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Diedenbach. Mr. Newman, do you have another question? Okay. Do we have any other questions or comments from the board? Seeing none, do we have anybody on the line for public comment, or do we have any e-comments that came in on this item? Ms. Thomas?
No, I do not believe we have any e-comments that have come in.
Okay, do we have anybody on the line for public comment?
We do not have any public comments on this issue.
Okay, thank you. So I will bring it back to the board for discussion and or motion. Mr. Ackerman?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd also make one other comment. I read recently, 6 months ago, that there's a substantial benefit to replacing old gas stations with new gas stations, because the whole infrastructure that is utilized in the newer facilities is far safer, far less polluting, lasts longer, more. So I'm generally in favor of replacing, in this case, which is pretty unusual, we're actually replacing an antiquated facility with a new modern facility. And with that said, I would move that the plan board approve the special use permit for the tertiary well field zone. And this is PB 20-0092 SUP, based on today's staff report as well as the testimony we've heard today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ackerman. Ms. Walker-Radke?
I would ask whether Mr. Ackerman would be amenable to a friendly addition, the condition that the old gas station be fully decommissioned and that well field permit is retired. I'm not entirely sure how that works behind the scenes, and I realize that the developer is planning that already, but I would like to see it as a condition.
Why not add it to the next one where there's another special use permit for the additional pumps?
Well, it seems to have more to do with the well field permit itself than necessarily what's going to go on it, which is why I was suggesting it for this one.
Madam Chair, I'll withdraw my motion and let Ms. Walker-Radke make it.
Okay, before Ms. Walker-Radke goes, I think Mr. Hawkins has a comment.
I'm prepared to second Megan's motion.
Okay, Ms. Walker-Radke, are you ready?
I am ready. So I move that we approve petition PB 19-00112 SUP, specifically related to the well field special use permit, with the condition that the current gas station located a half mile to the north, that the well field permit associated with that station is retired.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion?
Madam Chair, I think Ms. Walker-Radke read the PB number for the SUP as opposed to the one for the Wellfield SUP.
Ms. Walker-Radke, can we clarify we're talking about PB 2092 SUP?
20, that is what I said. That's what
Nope.
I see in the packet. Is that incorrect? Is it different on the agenda?
The one you read is the associated, which we'll hear next. If you
I
look at the
see.
bottom of the front page, you'll see there's a specific there.
Yes, thank you for catching that. So I would move that we approve petition PB 20-00092 SUP for a wellfield special use permit, contingent that the current, the wellfield permit serving the current gas station location a half mile to the north is retired upon completion of the proposed new facility.
And I second the motion as modified.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any further discussion? Seeing none, I will call the roll. Ms. Walker-Radke?
Aye.
Mr. Ackerman?
Yes.
Ms. Sutton?
Aye.
Mr. Blythe?
Aye.
Mr. Newman?
Aye.
Mr. Hawkins?
Aye.
And I'm also an aye. Motion passes unanimously. Staff, can we move on to the next item in the agenda, please?
Absolutely. Again, for the record, my name is Juan.
Well, Juan, I need to read it into record first. Sorry. That's okay. We're all ready to keep it moving. All righty. Petition PB-19-112 SUP CHW Incorporated, agent for WRJ Sales Incorporated, request for a special use permit to allow the construction of a fuel station with 12 gas pumps and an associated convenience store facility, zone business automotive, automotive oriented business, located at 4545 Northwest 13th Street.
Thank you, Ms. Thomas. Mr. Castillo, if you'd like to proceed.
Okay. Yeah, I apologize about that. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can now.
Perfect. Again, for the record, my name is Juan Castillo, planner for the Department of Sustainable Development. I am presenting item number 200442. This petition is the second of two related petitions this evening as it pertains to this property and the proposed development associated with it. The item before you this evening is a privately initiated petition by CHW for a special use permit to allow for an additional 6 fueling positions for a total of 12 fueling positions. The complete development encompasses a convenience store, a car wash, more of this one, there you go. A convenience store, a car wash, and of course, gasoline fueling positions. Our land development code allows the use by right within the automotive oriented business district. However, gas stations are limited to 6 fueling positions with the allowance of up to 12 fueling positions if applicants go through the special use permit process. As mentioned in the earlier related petition, the property lies within the Murphy's Tertiary Wellfield, which necessitates a wellfield special use permit in order to allow for underground storage of petroleum. Excuse me. Staff has reviewed the application before you and has found that it meets the special use review criteria found within our land development code with conditions. The conditions are new sidewalks must connect to the existing sidewalk on Northwest 6th Street. Approval of the special use permit is subject to the approval of the submitted lot split. This would divide the multifamily residential property to the south of the proposed development. A connection will be provided to the new parcel that's created. A gas station canopy will not exceed height restrictions of 15 feet per section 30-5.14. With that, staff has communicated with the applicant and the applicant has agreed to these conditions. Therefore, staff is recommending approval with conditions of this special use permit. Thank you. I am available for any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Castillo. Do we have any questions for staff from the board? All right, seeing none, does the applicant have a presentation this evening?
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you. I'm going to start my screen share, and you can indicate when it comes through, please.
You're there.
Okay, thank you. Again, Jerry Diedenbach from CHW. We're here tonight representing our clients, Circle K, and we greatly appreciate your allowance of the Wellfield special use permit to actually reconstruct and move this store to a modern new facility. Proof of publication, we actually held 2 neighborhood workshops for this because of the time involved between the initial application and then finding that the Wellfield special use permit was not optional at that point in time. So a second neighborhood workshop was held. The first one was in July of 19, and then we reheld the neighborhood workshop in August of this year. 1 attendant was present. The request is for 6 additional fueling positions on this 8.24 acre site that we will be splitting, as I told you. So we'll be on approximately the north 4 acres or so up here in the apex of the confluence of North 6th Street and 441. The process and our tentative timeline is we are working on the development plans. And so the conceptual plan that we have shown you tonight is largely the plan that we feel and have presented to staff that demonstrates consistency with both the comprehensive plan and the land development code. As I stated a few minutes ago, our goal is to close this store and move about 2,600 feet to this new location and build a fully modernized store. This is the picture that I took this afternoon, and you can see that those existing positions there are often only on one side, and they are 1 car wide on this side, 1 car wide on this side, and if no cars are there, people, if they're stopped at the traffic light, can cut the corner and use that as a cut through, which has happened before. Again, general location of the site sits at the confluence of State Road 20 or North 6th Street and 441 here, and we're surrounded by a vast number of mechanical uses such as Ride Now Power Sports and Gatorland Kubota and Park Place Motors, and then more industrial uses to the east side of the site. We will be consistent with the underlying commercial land use and the BA zoning, but the special use permit is needed to increase the pumps to a total of 12 fueling positions here. A little bit about the concept plan. We always show you these because they look very engineered, and that's because we do engineer these and try to give you a very clear representation of what will be occurring on the site. So you see 6th Street on the eastern portion or the right-hand side of the screen, and 441 at this point is running north-south along the left side of the screen. The proposed building will be placed up in the apex of the corner close to the street. Kind of envision what the service station looks like at the intersection of North Main Street and 16th Avenue. So unlike the days of old where you had the canopies out there as the prominent feature, the building will actually occupy that corner. To show you the overall layout, we will utilize the existing median cut on 441 with a slight modification to add a little bit of additional turn into it, and you can turn into the site headed south on 441 or turning in from heading north on 441. So you'll have full access on here. On 6th Street, we will have a full access point here, which will be aligned roughly with the driveways on the other side of the road here on 6th Street, obviously. The fuel canopy will be in the core central portion of the site, and a car wash area will be located to the south edge of the site, roughly approximate and adjacent to the stormwater management facility. Today, as you saw on the aerial, there are no stormwater management facilities, and this used to be an open field with mobile homes for sale on here. We will be completing the sidewalk network around the entire project and actually linking the, what I call the nose of the apex here, with sidewalks to a vestibule, which will form the front of the store here. So if you were coming from Ride Now Power Sports and you walked across 441 here, although there's not an intersection, you could access the store through the air-conditioned vestibule and go into the retail portion here. That will also extend to the sidewalk on 6th Street to the east, and then we will have a sidewalk that wraps around the building and then also connects on the south side, which is more where your automobile-oriented uses are. That entrance again here on the north side is this notched sort of vestibule with doors on either side of it. So the sidewalks will wrap around the vestibule here. A landscape buffer will be placed on both 441 around the parking areas as well as the circulation areas, and then over here on 6th Street along the parking areas, and then along the entrances to really dress this up. It's pretty bleak out there today. When Commissioner Carter and I walked the site this afternoon prior to the rain, yeah, a lot of garbage, a lot of signs of neglect, and a lot of signs of people that enter and live into this creek area here. The overall remainder of the site north of the buffers will be effectively open space. There are wetlands on the southern portion and the eastern portion of what is going to be the future lot split, but these drawings here show the minimum of, or excuse me, the required 75-foot buffer. And in some cases, as it was documented in Mr. Castillo's staff report, those buffers extend up to 125 feet. There's a fenced area that I illustrated before that used to encompass the mobile home sales area. So a lot of this area between the fence and the buffer is back to natural vegetation at this point in time. So we're really concentrated with this portion of the site here. That's the area where the lot split would be, and a future complementary use, obviously not somebody who would sell fuels or motor vehicle type uses, might be located here. This might become a restaurant in the future for the residents in the area, or another type of store, but I don't know that at this point. So you're not approving anything south of this purple line. These drawings show the facade. This is the northern facade that would be facing 6th and 441. This is the vestibule area. This is the elevation view, whereas this is the plan view, and it shows that vestibule here that's coming out and would have doors on either side. So this is an air-conditioned space here. And then the facade to the south, where more of the motor vehicle uses are, would also have a set of doors there and glazing on that side. So with that, I'll conclude my presentation. We're happy to answer any questions you may have. Again, myself, Mr. Brazier, and Craig Carter are here, as well as Ryan Thompson from our staff. So thank you very much for your consideration. We're happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you, Mr. Diedenbach. I see Mr. Hawkins has a question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have sort of three things that I'm thinking about, and they all relate to the same idea, which is that looking at the site plan, we didn't have any elevations in our backup. So those things that Mr. Diedenbach just showed us, I hadn't seen before, and I didn't see clearly now, but perhaps we can go back to them. Based on the site plan, it looks like the front of the building faces south. And the reason that I say that is because that looks like a very prominent entrance in the center of the facade. There's a sidewalk across the entire front of the facade, whereas the northern side of the building doesn't have a door that faces north. The doors kind of face sideways. We don't have sidewalk coverage there. And I've seen quite a few instances where when the code requires folks to put the pumps behind the building, what folks do is they just rotate the building 180 degrees, 80 degrees. They say the pumps are behind the building, but they're still in front of the building. They just now put the back of the building towards the street. And I want to be sure that we don't approve a special use permit that would allow that outcome. So I think one thing I'd like to do is if Mr. Castillo could walk us through these elevations, kind of let us know, one, were these part of your review? Two, if they were part of your review, how did you determine which was the front of the building? Another question would be, have we seen a floor plan yet? I mean, a floor layout of what the interior space looks like would really quickly tell us which is the front and the back of the building. Where maybe it's omnidirectional, maybe it doesn't have a front and a rear. But if there's storage space on the north side, then that would clearly be the rear. So I'd like to kind of talk through some of those issues. And then the other big rock that I see here is there's a gigantic billboard right in front of the building. And I don't know how we get I don't know how we get design that's compatible with the area. And I don't know how we have a building frontage that meets our special use permit criteria if it's obstructed by a billboard. So I think we kind of need to talk through, is the billboard coming down as part of this plan? what, and then walk through these buildings with these issues with how the building's oriented. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll yield the floor to Mr. Castillo to kind of walk through this.
Thank you, Mr. Hawkins. Mr. Castillo?
Sure. I will share my screen here really quickly. So these are some elevations. Well, let me show this actually. This is the current plans for the proposed development. In determining the front, primarily looked at the plans and noticed that there were that this area right here, the northern part, has access to the building here. Also, it's connected via sidewalks. As far as the layout is concerned, you have traffic that is moving from this area into the development here. So it's a prominent entrance. And that's what I primarily looked at when determining if this was a front.
So you did determine that the north was the front based on this image?
Yes.
Do you have a PDF? This is not legible on my screen. Do we have a PDF version of this?
I do not have a PDF version right now. Let me see if you give me like 3 minutes while I go through city plan or project docs, I can pull one up.
Madam Chair, may I address an issue while Mr. Castillo is getting the other plan?
Please go ahead, Mr. Diedenbach.
Okay, thank you. Juan is sharing here.
I apologize.
I guess I don't need to share to talk about the billboard though. So, and Mr. Carter can opine on this as can our client. The landowner today has a active contract with Clear Channel Outdoor Advertising that owns the billboard. There is little that our client can do to compel the landowner to break his contractual responsibilities with Clear Channel Outdoor Advertising. And I know that there are, pre-existing non-conforming uses like billboards in the area. The contract has repeat, if you will, renewal cycles on it. The next time I believe it is available for renewal is a few years from now. But today, there's nothing that our client can do to cause the landowner who holds that legitimate business lease to break that contract. So
I was under the impression that you represented WRJ or the property owner.
Well, since they are the landowner today, but this is a contingent contract, Madam Chair, with Circle K purchasing the land or the portion where their store would be. We don't have the authority, nor does Circle K have the authority to tell the existing landowner to break that contract. So based on the timing of that, we can't do anything to remove that billboard today on this. We don't have that authority. Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Diedenbach. Mr. Castillo, any progress on the PDF?
Yes, you should be seeing the PDF version right now. This is the PDF version.
We're not seeing your screen. I think you need to share your screen with us.
Oh, my apologies. I thought that was still being shared. Okay, here we go. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I'm assuming, Mr. Hawkins, you want me to zoom in here?
I mean, I'd be interested in seeing whatever you are interested in showing us.
Okay, so this is the front area right here. You got the vestibule. You got an entrance that connects to the general area. Let me see here. And then you have, if you look at the, I should pull that up too. If you're looking at the site plan, you notice that this part is predominantly connected to existing sidewalk. And that's pretty much all staff has to go on as far as determining if something is a frontage for this development.
Thank you, Mr. Castillo. Mr. Hawkins, any comment?
I don't want to abuse your discretion. If nobody else has any comments, I'll continue, but I don't want to take. Does anybody else have a hand up?
Nobody else has a hand up. Does anybody else have any comments or questions? Mr. Diedenbach has his hand up.
Yeah, I would just like to add, I don't know, Mr. Castillo, if you can take your screen share down.
Sure.
Just a moment. The way that, Madam Chair, the way that we looked at and approached the design on this, I'm going to share this out of Google Earth Pro. This is the gas station that sits at the north portion of Main Street and 39th Avenue. Very similar in form and function. There is a vestibule located on the intersection. And if you were to take this view and kind of flip it around like that, as Mr. Castillo just showed you, when you enter the vestibule from the north side of the building, the cashier areas and all the service areas where the employees work is located here. So while there's general retail that occurs throughout the core of the site, that is a valid entrance. And, you know, I don't want to point too much of a parallel, but that's really fairly close to what we're proposing there with that north entrance, realizing that a lot of our clientele obviously are bringing their vehicles there for the purpose of buying fuel or you know, food and beverages. They're driving there at this point, but it has a very similar orientation to the station at the corner of 39th Avenue and North Main that has a vestibule door that opens up with the cashier areas here toward the north portion of the building. So that's kind of how that works. And so there's, you know, equal, I would say, you know, opportunities to shop and move about the store, but the cashiers and the personnel side is primarily on the north side of the building.
Thank you, Mr. Diedenbach. Mr. Blythe.
Just a quick question on the fencing around those outdoor condenser units on the front side of the building. Do we know what that'll be made out of at this point?
Madam Chair, I actually don't know what that would be made out of at this point in time, since we're not into the full architecture of this. I mean, we have a very good idea, but I don't know the materials choice, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Diedenbach. Mr. Blythe, do you have another question?
No, I guess it would be more just, could we maybe request that those not be chain link as part of any potential approval?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Blythe. Mr. Hawkins.
I want to follow up from Mr. Castillo's presentation of the layout. And I think Mr. Diedenbach kind of made this point in describing this other gas station. Every convenience store that I have ever been in has the fridge in the back and the cashier in the back, or sometimes on the sides. You know, maybe about a quarter of the time it's on the side. The floor plan that Mr. Castillo showed made it clear to me that the entryway is on the southern side of the building, and the back comes in behind the cashier next to the walk-in beer cooler. I actually hadn't appreciated that there were air conditioning condensers on the north side of the building. And that's unfathomable to me that you would build a retail store and put the air conditioning condensers right outside the front door. I mean, it's clear to me that the door on the north is the back door and the door on the south is the front door. And especially it's hiding behind a billboard. My thought is this is not cooked, and we need to I'd be very comfortable denying it. I'd be very comfortable continuing it to solve some of these problems. But this is a gateway entrance into the city of Gainesville. Having the back of a Quickie Mart at this location is not a good look. And that's probably the easiest way I could put it. If you're entering Gainesville from the north, this is the most prominent intersection that you see as you approach the city. And it needs to be something other than a billboard perched on top of the back of a Quickie Mart.
Thank you, Mr. Hawkins. Ms. Walker-Radke.
I was actually just going to second what Mr. Hawkins said. I mean, the billboard is taller than the building, and everything that's said to justify the north side being the front side actually seems to do the opposite. So I don't see how it's going to look any different than the back of a building and a really large billboard, whereas this corner lot has the potential to actually look really nice. And so prior to approving a special use permit, especially adding additional pumps in an ecologically sensitive area, I would want to make sure that we are trading that, or we are granting that special use in return for a development that really meets not just the specifics of the regulations by sort of massaging it, but really meets the spirit of our regulations as well.
Thank you, Ms. Walker-Radke. Do we have any other comments from the board? My comment is a little bit unrelated to what we've talked about, but it's similar in sentiment to Mr. Hawkins and Ms. Walker-Radke. And I know that that we don't have anything to do with splitting the lot. I'm uncomfortable with the idea that in order to accomplish the car wash, they have to split the lot to kind of get around the rule that you can't have a car wash next to a residential area. I know that we don't have purview over that, but that way of what in my mind is skirting the rules makes me very uncomfortable. And in addition to the things that Ms. Walker-Radke and Mr. Hawkins have been discussing, that bothers me on a fundamental level. So I just wanted to put that out there. With that, does anybody else have any comments, or are we ready? Oh no, we need to open to public comment. Mr. Diedenbach.
No, I was going to say, as often occurs on special use permits, what I would like to do, and it sounded like Member Hawkins and maybe perhaps Member Megan Walker-Radke was stating, was that you'd like to see some better or some enhanced aesthetics. I realize this is a very busy plan here. I don't see the condensers out there per se. I do see some electrical elements out there, but if you would like us to take and create some effective modeling of this and how it fits on that apex of the intersection and how the north side addresses more of the urban gateway to the north, we'd be happy to do that. I heard a comment in there also about the vestibule. It is accessed by sidewalks on both sides, but it seemed like there was a comment that instead of having the vestibule with side doors on it, that it would be better to have a door facing forward with the sidewalk and that connection point from 6th to 441. So I know that Ryan and obviously Craig are listening intently, as is our client. So there's a lot that I think that we can do to give you a better picture of this, because when I look at these architectural plans myself, I do agree that they are very busy, and we could bring this back in a more visual form for you.
Thank you, Mr. Diedenbach. Ms. Walker-Radke.
Thank you very much. If this goes where it sounds like it might be going with regards to developing additional elevations and plans that we can look at, I would also request that they be shown with the billboard in place if that's something that you really cannot remove. I would like to see that in the context of the building, please.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Walker-Radke. Ms. Sutton.
I think if you can come back, like you've sort of heard, with more renderings, with some material choices for the fence, so that we can see what these sidewalks and what this entrance is really going to be like. Make it a little bit cleaner. If we're still going to be on Zoom meetings, it's a little easier if we're in person, to see things on the big screen. But it is tough to decipher those plans, just on the computer screen sometimes. So I think a little bit more detail and maybe just rethinking that north side of the building is what it's going to take.
Thank you. Yeah, and while it is very convenient for us to look at what was there or what is there today, we can come back with some better graphics to help you understand how that connection works and how, when we build sidewalks across the front of here and then down 6th Street, how this all plays out spatially. I understand that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Diedenbach. Mr. Diedenbach, I have a question for you. If we were to have a motion to continue, I know this item has been lagging for more than a year now, and part of that's out of everybody's control, and I would apologize for that, but would you be amenable to us having a motion to continue?
Oh, absolutely, Madam Chair. We would be happy for you to have a motion to continue, and we'll see you before Thanksgiving, or maybe back even in city chambers if that's.
We won't have a meeting in November.
Yeah, our
So
next meeting is
be in
beginning of December.
Do you know the date by chance, Madam Chair?
Not off the top of my head, but I think staff has it.
Okay.
I believe it's the 10th, December 10th.
Yeah,
That
it's
sounds right.
early December.
Okay.
I'd like to see at least 3-story columns on the front.
Ms. Sutton, do you have another question or comment?
Oh, no, I just didn't unraise my hand.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right, I just don't want to miss anybody. So do we have any more comments or questions from the board for either staff or the applicant? Mr. Hawkins.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd make a motion that we continue. We haven't taken public comment yet, have
We
we?
have to go to public comment first.
I yield.
Okay. All right. Seeing none, do we have anybody on the line for public comment?
We have no public comment on this issue.
And are there any e-comments in the queue?
No e-comments in the queue.
Okay, so bringing it back to the board, Mr. Hawkins?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I make a motion the Plan Board continue item PB-19-00112 SUP to the first date available that allows revised submittals and staff review.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second.
We have a second from Mr. Newman. Any comment? All right, I will take the roll. Mr. Ackerman.
Yes.
Mr. Blythe.
Yes.
Mr. Hawkins.
Yes.
Mr. Newman.
Yes.
Ms. Sutton.
Yes.
Ms. Walker-Radke.
Yes.
And I'm also yes, so the motion passes unanimously. Mr. Diedenbach, you're muted again.
I said thank you, and we'll see you after Thanksgiving and before Christmas.
Sounds good. Thank you so much.
Have a good
All
evening.
right. Thank you. All right, staff, moving on. I see we have one discussion item. If we could please read that into the record.
So this is, sorry, discussion of proposed amendments to the Land Development Code. I don't know if you recall at the previous meeting in August, sorry, I have to kind of think back on when we last met. I believe it was the August meeting, we had a number of code amendments that we wanted to bring forward to discuss with you. I don't have a presentation for this. I kind of wanted to try something out and just show kind of the document. If it doesn't work, of course, I'll come back with the presentation the next go around. So let me go ahead and share my screen with you. Okay, so here's the first amendment. It's for notification for neighborhood workshops. I don't know if you recall when we met, I guess about a year ago or more ago, this was one of the items that was brought forward in terms of wanting to discuss. There were a couple of recommendations or ideas that were brought up either by the city commission or by the plan board, just concerning, do we send enough notification? Do we need to extend the boundary from 400 to include even more? Currently, the notification is sent to any property within 400 feet, as well as any property that is being leased or rented within 400 feet of a property. Well, I'm sorry, that's for actual board items, but for neighborhood notification, it's 400 feet as well as the neighborhood association. And so just over the course of time of that discussion, we did include a little bit of language. There was some discussion of, posting a sign at the actual site, identifying, when the actual workshop is occurring. And then there was also some discussion later in terms of notice and how right-of-way vacations are handled. So, this particular code amendment, I think, probably deserves a lot more discussion that should be kind of tailored around what comes about for the when we start the process for the comp plan amendment. So, I'm not sure if this is one that's really is a good time to kind of start the process now, because I really do believe that a lot more will come out of the comp plan process in terms of how to kind of handle this. And I don't think there's just an easy and quick fix that will really come about with just modifying this section of the code. I think there are some other avenues that we could discuss and really tackle in terms of ensuring that people and residents are really involved in processes.
Yvette, if I could just add one thing while I'm thinking of it, under issues to consider, especially in light of the pandemic, or is there some kind of way that a member of the public who doesn't feel safe to come out to a meeting in person can participate online in any of these workshops?
So currently we are allowing the applicants to conduct their meetings virtually. So I think that's definitely a great idea to just go ahead and incorporate that into the code. I know from some discussions with the neighborhoods, they have even brought up, can we video these meetings? And I'm like, well, you can do whatever you want to, but I definitely think that that's something we should probably go ahead and incorporate into the code.
Okay.
There was also some discussion in terms of whether or not staff should be present at those meetings. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Does anybody on the board have any thoughts on that?
Madam Chair,
I think.
Mr.
Yeah,
Ackerman?
I can't raise my hand mechanically, sorry. This has been an area that people have complained about for pretty much the whole time I've been on the board. And I think that we do need to figure out a way for people to know better when things start, which means, at some point when, here's the issue I hear all the time. I got a week's notice, 10 days notice. You got to remember, if we mail it 10 days, it doesn't get there. The applicant has been working on this for months, but the neighborhood has, maybe a week to get organized and figure out how they feel about this thing. And I think that's a big issue. So I would like to at least consider longer notifications, earlier notifications, as in at the point maybe that the petition is filed. I think we should definitely increase the boundary beyond 400 feet. I'm glad we're including residents as well as property owners, but I think we ought to do, first of all, I'll admit it's really difficult for us to notify people. I mean, people are hard to notify. So I would urge that we do it online, post it on the property, and if we can do a tool that lets people say, notify me of anything within blah, I think that's a good idea too. But I do think we need longer notification periods, which I know will make petitioners crazy, but I still think it's important. Thank you. You're muted, Aaron.
Ms. Sutton, you had your hand up and now it seems to be gone.
Yeah, I was just going to say, when they were asking about staff attending those meetings, I think that that may be a lot of work for staff. For example, my firm, I know they're not all city projects, but we have 6 neighborhood meetings over 4 days next week. That would, you know, they aren't all City of Gainesville, like I said, but it could end up being a lot for staff to have to attend. So I don't think that that should be required. We have been holding virtual neighborhood meetings over the, you know, pandemic and as the emergency order has allowed. And I do think that we should continue that. I like the idea, even post-pandemic, whenever that happens to be, of having the option for a virtual meeting, because I do think it's easier for people to participate, you know, people who may have childcare issues or health issues or other things. I like the virtual neighborhood meetings, and I think they've been working out well. So maintaining that as an option is a good idea.
I would agree with you, and I would just point out that some of our property owners don't live in Gainesville, and that would give them an opportunity to participate without having to travel. So, Mr. Hawkins.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a couple of thoughts I want to share, and one's a little bit outside the box of what we're looking at here, but I think it's a good idea. One is I like the idea of staff mailing the notice rather than the applicant, and you know, we can roll it into the amount of the fee so that it doesn't cost the applicant anything more, and it compensates staff for our efforts. One concern that I hear all the time is folks saying that they didn't get notice, and then the applicant says, we mailed something to you, and the person who's frustrated says, well, I don't trust you, I don't believe you. And if you cut down on that if city staff mail it and have a receipt from the postal office, etc.
Because everybody trusts the government now. Sorry.
At least the government's required by law to keep better records. So that's one idea. A second idea is, and Yvette may have mentioned this, Ms. Thomas may have mentioned this, but noticing the residents, when a structure's not owner occupied, and we notice the owners, we miss out on the people who live closest. Did she mention that? No.
So we already do that. We already do that.
Oh, fantastic. Thanks, Bob. The third one is, I'm on the same page as Member Sutton regarding staff attendance. One thing that we ran into, I looked at a lot of different ways local governments do these public workshops when I worked at 1,000 Friends of Florida. And one of the big problems that arises when staff regularly attends the neighborhood workshops is that people think it's a city meeting. And they start going to the staff for answers and trying to ask the staff to commit to certain outcomes. And in addition to the time, I don't think that's fair to put a fair position to put staff in. The purpose of the meeting is to make sure the public knows and to make sure the applicant knows about any concerns. And it's up for the city in the review process and in a public hearing to address those concerns, not at the neighborhood workshop. So I feel pretty strongly about that, kind of in the same way that Stephanie does. And then the third thing is, based on my reading of the division, we only require a public meeting for things that are getting teed up for a hearing. Stephanie's shaking her head. That surprised me when I just read this provision now. So our public workshop requirements are broader than our hearing requirements.
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yes.
Scroll where the language that I was seeing that on was on page PDF page 3, I think, where we have the actual code language. Go ahead, Stephanie.
These days, a typical site plan doesn't go to a board at all. It can even be a major, and it doesn't go to a board. And you do have to hold a neighborhood meeting for intermediate and major site plans.
Okay, so that my confusion was that under B, it says every application that requires board approval. So there's a separate requirement that requires workshops for applications that don't have board approval?
Yes, so any type of development plan that falls within intermediate or major.
Okay, thank you.
And there's a separate table that shows that.
Okay, with it, that tees up for the last thing that I wanted to mention is I think that our board review requirements are too narrow, and that the biggest problem we have with excluding residents is allowing them to come to hearings, and that we should add to this referral having development review board review for intermediate projects, major projects, and master plans. And I have the table that Stephanie was just mentioning and Yvette was just mentioning, I have up. So, so we can talk about what those thresholds are. And I moved away from them in lieu of the special use permit requirements. Just a real quick moment. I'm not going to be able to, it's going to take me a second to find it, and I don't think it's worth everybody waiting.
So I think if you look at 4 and 5,
Go ahead.
If you look at 4 and 5, it covers some of what falls in that category.
Yes, so what I'm suggesting is not that we have workshops for more meetings, but that we have development review board hearings for intermediate review, major review, and master plans. And so I'd like us to add that to the staff referral. And you know, it'll come back to us for us to consider. And of course, it would have to go to the city commission. It might not end up happening, but I'd at least like us to look at what that language would look like in the code and kind of get a sense of what the ramifications of that change would be. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Hawkins. Do we have any other board member comments on this? Ms. Thomas, do you want to move on to your next item? Oh, Ms. Sutton.
I would just follow up on what Member Hawkins was just saying. I don't know that I would support intermediate projects going to a board hearing. I think that master plans and major projects are probably a level, you know, that makes sense to be seen by a board, but there's a lot of intermediate projects. It's easy to get into that threshold, and, you know, having to wait for a board hearing and public notice and things really, you know, can affect those projects a lot.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Sutton.
I'm sorry to interrupt. We do have a public comment on this particular item, if it's okay to go to public comment on that.
Okay. I guess we can do public comment on a discussion item. I don't know if that's typically what we do, but if we have somebody on the line, let's hear what they have to say.
Totally understand that the caller has been waiting patiently through all of the agenda items so far and wanted to discuss opportunities to be involved. So I wanted to make sure that she got to have her comment. And the caller's number is 7823. I'm going to unmute your line. Thanks for waiting, and we're open to hear your comment.
Hello, Joe Beatty. First of all, I'm not sure why my phone number is announced, but and since I've been on this call since 6:30 and cannot see any of the, I can't see anything. I can't see who's talking. I can't see any of the items that have been put up, and I want that known. And I was talking to Willie, so I missed some of this item. Your discussion, you were talking about participation and Zoom meetings, et cetera, et cetera. Do I understand that correctly?
That's part of what we've been discussing, yes. We're looking more broadly at neighborhood workshops and notice of projects and what our requirements will be for those things.
Well, I just want to say that I think that just having these Zoom meetings and stuff is not fair to those, some of us that want to be involved in other ways. The transparency is not always there. I go on record as telling you that I tried to get into the Zoom meeting. I got a notice of this meeting because I have property nearby. Special use permit, I guess. And the information on that card did not yield anything but being able to be here on the phone and basically think, you know, you should really consider about all the ramifications, not just making this for some people that are out of town or whatever. There
Ma'am,
are a
if I
lot
could
of us.
just, if I could just clarify, that my name is Erin Condon and I'm the chair of the board at the moment. There are opportunities to watch the live broadcast on local cable and online on the computer. We have, as panelists in the Zoom meeting, the applicants and the members of the plan board and city staff, but the public can watch what we see on our computer screens via cable and also via the internet. So I'm sorry that that information, wasn't.
Excuse me, Ms. Congdon, please. I have been trying to get on the live streaming, the whole thing. You can talk to Willie. I've called people that have Channel 12 and they went to look and the meeting is not there. And so it is a problem.
Okay, thank you.
I was bringing that problem to the attention. Also, I was not afforded the opportunity to talk on several of the items because, and this is not you, this is the city commission, the city manager, it's not the committee, but there are layers of people between me and you, processes who determine when people want to talk and what's going to happen. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to put this on the record. And I just hope all of the ramifications of some of the recommendations that you might make.
Okay.
Thank you for the opportunity to.
I appreciate you calling in. I'm very sorry that there was some kind of miscommunication between you and the board. And I'm sorry that you haven't been able to access the resources. I'm sure the city staff will look into that. And I would also like to further clarify that I don't think any of us want to continue solely via Zoom going forward, but we wanted to add that as an additional option moving forward for people who are out of town. So I hope that that addresses some of your concerns. And again, I apologize on behalf of the plan board and the city staff for the troubles that you've had this evening. Thank you for participating.
And thank you for taking the time for that comment. We have no more commenters on this item.
Thank you. Is there any other comment on this portion of Ms. Thomas's information? Seeing none, if we want to move on.
All right, the next item up for discussion is building frontage requirements in the transect zones. One of the issues that we've run into, and especially with corner lots and within the transect zones, are meeting the frontage requirements. There's been a couple of ideas that have been thrown around in terms of meeting that, putting some sort of wall in place. I think in terms of how form-based zoning and transect zoning, it's all about really filling a space. And I don't necessarily know if a wall or even just having a building or just that area filled entirely fits the purpose of, I think, what we really want with the transects. And then also just in terms of what's happening now, there's a lot more, projects that are coming in or just requests to have outdoor areas, to accommodate what's happening today. So, just kind of threw a little bit of information together in terms of how we could address corner lots outside of just, putting a wall or putting something simple, maybe allowing a little bit more creativity in how to fill that space and really get people to, enjoy those active areas or creating active areas. And then I also just included just a couple of photos that I found that I thought could be just kind of interesting to kind of spark a little bit more discussion.
Thank you, Ms. Thomas. Do we have any comments from the board on this information? Seeing none, Ms. Thomas, if you'd like to move on.
I was just going to add.
Oh, Mr. Hawkins, go ahead.
I'm weary of making changes in this direction. One concern that I've had of development in the transects is that it doesn't meet the current frontage requirements because folks have, built walls or other features instead of meeting the frontage requirement. And I think it takes us pretty dramatically away from the intent of the form-based districts. So if staff wants to move this forward, I'm interested in seeing it, but I'm leery, I suppose I would say.
Thank you, Mr. Hawkins. Do we have any other comments? All right, Ms. Thomas, if you'd like to move on.
The next item is for right-of-way vacations. Currently, the way the code is written today regarding right-of-way vacation, it tends to favor high-density, more intense uses as being a part of kind of that review criteria. Some of the issues that we've run into have been when requests from just single-family zone properties have like an alley or maybe a side alley, and they're kind of tired of maintaining that, and they wish to incorporate it into the property. And so based on the review criteria, it's kind of hard for them to actually meet that. They would also need to go through the same process as a mixed use project would. And so just wanted to kind of discuss some language that kind of clarifies that a little bit more. I know that there's, some people in the city that don't like the process as a whole in terms of, the city giving up, property in a sense. I know I looked at different cities to see in Florida just to see if there are different fees that are associated with that the city could recoup. I've seen where there's a fee that relates to if it's an improved street and that having to be paid to the city for any time a right-of-way is closed. So just provided some of that information for you.
Thank you, Ms. Thomas. Ms. Sutton?
Yeah, I really like this first option. I can think of some situations sort of in single family type areas where right-of-way vacation sort of makes sense, but because of the current rules, that's not really possible to meet the criteria. So I like I like the top option, option 1, a little bit better than option 2, where we just remove that. So if we are talking about a transect zone or a mixed use district, it still needs to be, for a larger project. But in these single family neighborhoods, we could let people sort of clean up these maps a little bit.
Thank you, Ms. Sutton. Mr. Hawkins?
Thanks. I think these rules are ripe for amendment. I think we should be extremely selective about vacating, as my sort of advocacy when these items come up has probably shown, but I do think that we could vacate, and we do, as a matter of practice, vacate roads that the rules wouldn't allow us to if we adhered to them. So I'm in support of looking at changing, and I very much like the suggestion that we have a fee amount that relates to the market value of the land. And I think that a most fair way to do it is to assess the market value of the property and charge that at least as one component of the fee, in addition to whatever administrative costs come with reviewing an application.
Thank you, Mr. Hawkins. Any other comments from the board? Okay, Ms. Thomas, if you'd like to, Mr. Ackerman.
Just, the city has a lot of theoretically platted streets that have never, ever been used for anything. I live on a corner lot on Northwest 49th Avenue and 19th Street that was platted in the 1890s. It's been vacated on both ends. I'm not quite sure I want to pay market value to get rid of, it's only 50 feet, so I'd only have to pay for 25 feet. I just don't know that that's particularly fair. Anyway, I do want to have a better process for getting rid of a lot of platted streets that have never ever been implemented, never will be implemented.
Mm-hmm.
For instance,
Thank you, Mr.
I live in the plat of Paradise, which my understanding is the oldest plat in the city. It's gigantic. It covers a very large percentage of the area where I live up on the northwest section of 441 at 53rd. It's never been implemented. There's a few roads that have been built. Most have been either piecemeal vacated, but it just seems like, you know, these paper plats that never were implemented, we ought to have some method of getting rid of a lot of that stuff.
Thank you, Mr. Ackerman. Mr. Hawkins?
In my 6 years on the commission and in my year and a half doing this, I don't recall seeing a vacation that wasn't associated with some interest in somebody doing a redevelopment project and they wanted more real estate. I guess I'm saying that to sort of think about Member Ackerman and Member Sutton's comments. What's the problem with having an access way that's unimproved? I mean, we've got those in Pleasant Street, and sometimes they're open alleyways, sometimes they're not. They're just an easement on the back of the lot. Why would we want to? I suppose, why do we want to get rid of those? And if we do want to get rid of those, the rules that we're operating under now that we're considering amending are only a few years old. How come we weren't doing it before we had these rules in place? And it's an honest question. I don't have an answer in mind. I haven't heard this angle. I've only thought about this issue from the perspective of the numerous applications we get to vacate rights of way in the city center.
So I could speak a little to the single family projects. I believe last week I spoke with a gentleman that wanted to vacate a right of way. I believe it was a side alley between two properties that he actually owned. He had no intention of combining the lots or trying to redevelop it. He just wanted to basically take over that land because you can't park in it, you can't utilize it in any way. Someone has to maintain it. It's typically the property owners on either side. And so after explaining the process to him, he, started to talk about bureaucracy and this and that. And so and he's not the only person. There have been several other people that I've talked to just about how to go about doing it, and they tend to kind of not even want to be bothered with it. I know of a few maybe that were done years ago just from speaking to people. I'm not sure what the process or what the code looked like at that time, if it was an easier process, but I just know I have spoken to a few people that have been interested in doing it, and they just kind of throw their hands up and say, I'm not going to bother with it.
Why couldn't somebody park on a platted right of way? I mean, is GPD running around giving parking tickets to people parked on unapproved rights of way?
There was a recent, I believe it was somewhere in the Duck Pond, where there were just parking a car and it was unimproved. There was also maybe some trash and debris. And so they were fined because they didn't clean that area up. They thought it was part of their property, but it ended up actually being right of way.
Ms. Sutton?
Yeah, Thomas, I would just say, so my husband and I actually own a rental property that's adjacent to some city right of way, and it doesn't get taken care of. We sort of have a fence for the people on the property line so that they can have dogs in their backyard, and the city right of way doesn't get taken care of at all. It sort of becomes a place where there's trash and all kinds of other things. It isn't, obviously if it was next to my house, I would probably spend some time on it, but it's not fair for us to expect our renters to take care of city right of way. And so it just has become a bit of an eyesore. We haven't actually gone through the process of, talking to the person on the other side because I, happen to know the rules and that we couldn't get a right of way approved with the current rules and regulations. But I think there's a lot of cases like that, like Mr. Ackerman was saying, in just these old plats throughout the city where, you know, neighbors have probably just assumed in some cases that that is their land and they may be taking care of it, but there are other places where no one is taking care of it. And, you know, maybe with some education and, you know, letting people know that they have the option to do a right-of-way vacation, they would do so.
If this is a thinking that's shared by lots of folks on the board, I think the thing to do then is to have two sets of rules to somehow distinguish between these two kinds of circumstances and have different standards for each one. Because I can see, I don't know that I agree with it, but I can definitely see that there's a different argument to be made for the circumstance you're describing compared to vacating an alleyway that's used to access properties in downtown. Or a street, you know, we vacated streets, public streets that are paved and improved in inactive use in the city center multiple times since I've been on the board. And so I think those are different circumstances. If we want to liberalize rules, maybe we should have two sets of rules and start distinguishing between them. So that's my thought. And I clean the right of way adjacent to my property. I planted trees in it so people wouldn't park in it.
Thank you, Mr. Hawkins. Any other comments on this issue?
My right of way is his untouched forest.
Not 19th.
And runs only along my property. It doesn't run east or west of my property.
Yeah.
All right. Ms. Thomas, do we have any other issues to discuss?
I believe we have one last item, or at least I hope it's the last item.
Please.
I thought you guys.
We all want to watch the debate.
Really? Oh, sorry. So the next, item is just, this has really kind of been, I think, a thorn in a lot of staff side in terms of how the current code reads regarding sidewalks. It doesn't really take into account whether or not there are existing sidewalks in a neighborhood. I know it's come up a lot in the historic districts that, you know, historically they don't have them. Some of the neighborhoods that were built in the 50s and 60s don't have sidewalks. And so the way the code is written today, as new construction comes in, they are required to, you know, to meet current code, which requires the sidewalks. Oftentimes we, you know, when that's required, we're met with a lot of like, why there are no sidewalks in the neighborhood. And so there was a mention of, you know, creating a possible fee in lieu or sidewalk mitigation plan. Previously, there was language in the code that allowed for exceptions. The code today has a few exceptions, but not to the same degree that there was previously. So this is just kind of some language to go back, add, or have maybe a fee in lieu, and then add some more kind of exceptions along with that.
Do we have any comments on this item? Mr. Hawkins?
Thanks, Madam Chair. My only suggestion would be that we make sure that any fees collected get spent on sidewalks in the geographic area where the fee was collected. And so,
yes.
I don't know of an existing map that does that. We might have to adopt a new map. But something, some rule or map that keeps the money in the neighborhood.
I would agree with that as well. Do we have any other comments? Megan, does Darwin have a comment?
His comment is that it is time for bedtime snack, I believe, which is not totally applicable to the meeting, but perhaps we are also feeling the same thing.
All right. Ms. Thomas, are there any other items to discuss here?
I'm sorry, this was the last item.
Okay. Mr. Hawkins?
I was just going to ask Ms. Thomas if her job from here would be easier if she got any direction in the form of a motion and a vote from the board. Is that helpful with that?
I've taken a lot of notes. I guess it's more so, what would you like the next steps to be? Would you like further discussion, or to actually come back with more, I guess, addressing some of the recommendations that you've made, or just some of the comments and statements?
Yeah,
with some draft code language.
And yeah, with actual drafting code language. I've provided some just to kind of as a starting point.
I'm in favor of just come back with some of our comments incorporated into language.
And bring forward an actual agenda item or just more discussion?
Probably we have one more discussion on most of this.
Yes, definitely. Okay.
All right. Mr. Hawkins?
The one thing that I'm most interested in was the overlap that appears to possibly exist between Ms. Sutton and myself on having development review board approval for master plans and major development proposals. So I just want to underline that and ask staff to incorporate it. And if they want to test to see if there's support for it, I'd be happy to make a motion. But I don't need to take the time if they feel like they've observed that consensus already.
Yes, we definitely have.
All right. If that is the
Wait,
last.
Sorry, I think Andrew wanted to add something.
No, I think to Member Hawkins' point, I think that would be appropriate actually, because then we can bring that forward as because that's a completely separate section of the code, and we might have to bring that forward as a separate petition. And we would do that, in conjunction with the notification language.
Are you comfortable taking a motion now, Madam Chair, or would you want to wait until public comment?
Let's wait for public comment just in case. Do we have anybody on the line for public comment?
No public comment.
Okay, Mr. Hawkins, if you'd like to go ahead.
I move that we add to this referral list request that for a code amendment to require development review board review of major development projects and master plans.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second from Mr. Newman. I'll go ahead and take the roll. Mr. Ackerman?
No.
Mr. Blythe?
Repeat it one more time. My audio cut out for the last maybe 30 seconds. Sorry.
Mr. Hawkins, could you repeat your motion, please?
To add development review board review of major development proposals and master plans.
Mr. Blythe?
Yes.
Ms. Walker-Radke?
Yes.
Mr. Newman?
Yes.
Mr. Hawkins?
Yes.
Ms. Sutton?
I'm going to vote yes because I think that we should discuss it. I don't know that that's exactly where we'll end up, but I think that's something that staff should bring back for more discussion.
That's our understanding too. We'll bring back an actual petition for you to actually vote on and move to the city commission. But that's
All right, so I'm also a yes, so that passes 6-1. And do we have any other discussion items from the staff?
No, we do have a little bit more information, I guess, in terms of the boardroom setup. From what I understand, there are plexiglass, and I don't know if you want to talk about this now or.
That's fine.
There's plexiglass has been placed between, I guess, each of the seating or on the dais, and they've removed all of the chairs from the boardroom. So I believe that will allow for, I guess, just they won't be the same type of seating that was there before. Of course, it'll just be kind of free floating chairs that will allow for more social distancing. And so I just wanted to bring that up. I believe the in-person meetings will be a kind of a duo of virtual and in-person. So we're still getting more details about that. And so the more we have, the more, of course, we'll send out to you.
Thank you, Ms. Thomas. Do we have any, is there anybody on the line for public comment?
You have no remaining public comment.
Okay. Do we have any board member comments?
I just want to say thank you to staff for bringing us these 4 items tonight. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. We appreciate you guys.
Do we have any other board member comments? All right, since I'm kind of the person that caused all the trouble last time around, I do have one comment before we go, and I did write down my thoughts so that I could say them clearly, so excuse me for reading this, but I thought that would probably be best. I wanted to express on the record my discomfort with the idea that we're being forced as board members to expose ourselves to danger in an in-person environment for public meetings moving forward. Unless the city figures out a way to have meetings in the open air, as an immune compromised person, this essentially forces me to choose to either risk my life to continue my decade-long service on this board, or to be relegated to a non-voting role for the duration of the pandemic. This is particularly galling in light of the fact that, as we've demonstrated tonight, even with a few technical glitches here and there, that our board is fully capable of conducting our business in a safe and effective manner online. I know that the city is, to some extent, stuck between the rock of the pandemic and the hard place of the recklessness of our state government. And I also know that I'm not alone in being particularly vulnerable to the dangers presented by COVID-19. I'm frustrated and disappointed that the city can't find a way to protect me and potentially other members of the board or the staff or even the public to participate in these meetings fully. I think we can do better. And I appreciate the information that was brought to us tonight. I think that they are steps in the right direction, but it's become excessively clear based on scientific evidence and CDC guidelines that being in any enclosed space for a significant period of time with any number of people is significantly dangerous. I've proudly served on this board for the last decade. I hope to continue to do so. I don't believe that I should be required to risk my life to be able to vote or to serve the city of Gainesville. And I wanted that information to be on the record. I don't want any of our staff to take it personally, but I think the city does need to do more to protect us as board members, to protect themselves as staff, and to protect the public that wishes to participate. It's very hard for me to put myself out there like this and say these things. I don't think of myself as a disabled person, but in this respect, I am limited. And I feel like it's my duty to speak for those who may not be comfortable speaking out on this issue. And I know that this doesn't come from the city. I think our city has done a good job with the tools that we have to conduct our business in a safe way. I know this is mostly from the state, but I think the city's opening itself to liability if it continues to follow state mandates in this manner. And I'm very sorry that I'm ending this meeting this way, but I felt that it was my duty to speak out. And I appreciate my fellow board members who backed me up over our email correspondence last month. That was very meaningful to me. And I know you weren't all just speaking in your own personal best interest, and I appreciate that. So thank you very much. Do we have any other board member comments? Ms. Walker-Radke.
I said this over email, but
You're
I'll
muted.
go on the record here as well. I agree with what Chair Condon has said. And I think that we need to look closely at how we proceed, because I think it does, in our current environment, it does endanger not only the members of the board, but members of the public who are participating, and requiring that sort of exposure in order to participate in our democratic process, I think is something that we need to be aware of that implication, and we need to tread very carefully here.
Thank you, Ms. Walker-Radke. Mr. Newman?
Yeah, I thank you for your sentiment, and I totally agree. And yeah, I think, I mean, I've made choices where I haven't been in a building, you know, for an extended period of time, and you know, and I'm not necessarily an immune compromised person, but you know, I'm concerned about people around me, and it just does not make any sense for us to be forced back to sort of to be in a building, particularly you know, that this is a volunteer thing that we're sort of doing. So I think there needs to be some significant considerations. And, you know, if we are being required to sort of come back in person, you know, I'll have to sort of weigh what I'm going to be willing to do.
Thank you, Mr. Newman. Do we have any other board member comments? Staff, do we have our next meeting date? I don't have it written down right here.
December 10th.
Okay, thank you very much. With that information, I call this meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody.